Today, our topic is trust is the new currency in fintech and in the financial services market. I have our expert that I'm so excited to talk about, Brad Blumberg. Brad is the co-founder of Aster Key. He has a long history and record in the world of fintech and the financial sector. My proverbial first question is, how did you get into the mortgage world?
So I've always done real estate development as a hobby. My dad was an architect,
Okay.
and with my brother, we always do a little, usually commercial project, but some
Hmm.
apartments and things like that. And I started noticing about 3 years ago that my data kept getting lost by someone in that chain. So whether it was the lender, the
Hmm.
vendors that they used, the title company, Fannie, Freddie, whoever, I'm getting a
Yeah.
letter saying, and you probably started getting these yourself. I just started getting them at scale. And it was just, we're sorry, we lost your data. So I kind of went down the rabbit hole of why that happened. Like everyone else, when I get a mortgage, I just push paper till they say stop. And when I actually looked at the flows, how many hands touch it, the systems they used, I kind of realized that no matter how good your system is, it's vulnerable. And if you apply for a mortgage or any financial product, your data is likely to get hacked. It may not be right away. It could be
Hmm.
3 years from now, sitting on someone's database. People don't like to give up your information, even when they have
Hmm.
no use for it. And it just started being a problem. So I had sold our last startup was acquired, and I was looking for something really
Hmm.
big, change the world type thing. And I decided to fix why all our data is getting hacked and how to stop scams. So yeah, that's what that's what brought me here.
Well, that's the noble method. And so we'll talk about the trust thing in a second, but I'm curious in the bigger picture, what do you think lenders are missing in the big picture that they really should be thinking about?
I think they should kind of treat you as the consumer like a loved one, and they should think a little more about the data that they take in, that it's actually my data, the consumer's data.
Hmm.
As soon as you deal with a lender, they believe, okay, that's my data now. I get to use it. Some sell it. If you're like a big fintech, like a Credit Karma, NerdWallet,
Hmm.
50% of consumers use that kind of stuff. I mean, they're in the business of buying and selling and monetizing data.
Hmm.
So, whenever I hear people, start talking about in the industry about using people's data, knowing everything about them, I kind of get a little concerned because they don't have the things in place to protect my data. And I think
Hmm.
consumers should have a little more control
Hmm.
over their data.
Well, let's jump into your to the main focus today, which is trust is the new currency in the world of financial services, not just mortgage. But talk about, and you briefly have started about the problem, and then with dealing with lenders across the spectrum, you've dealt with certainly banks, credit unions, the whole slew of people. What is the view at the top of the house? I'm curious on your read of that, and where do you think? Where do you think they kind of misplace it? And you're starting to talk about they look at it as theirs, and you're exactly right. The loan officer looks at it as theirs. It's all these people saying it's theirs. So talk about that issue.
Yeah, I think today it's even a little scarier now with AI and
Hmm.
when someone calls me, even if it's a lender I do business with, I'm always, excuse the French, like who the F I'm thinking to myself, are you? Like I don't
Yeah.
trust anything now. I mean, they can use a voice, even
Hmm.
video.
Yeah.
I'm very skeptical about who's calling, what's going on. So I think this is a top of the house issue. I mean, it
Hmm.
really is for forward leaders, C-level folks to start thinking about not just call ourselves First Bank and Trust, but to actually have the systems behind that
Hmm.
that protect people's data. Because I think even if you look at like Apple, they market the trust factor. Even with
Correct.
AI now, people say they're behind the curve, but I think what's really going on is they're trying to wrap their hands around how do we protect consumers in our ecosystem and our devices. And when they come out with something, I think you'll see people kind of gravitate toward that because they'll market it as such, as more trust. And I really don't see any mortgage lenders or a lot of lenders in general kind of marketing like, hey, the most important thing is, your privacy and your security. And if they say it, it's not true at this point because they're shipping your data offshore.
Hmm.
No one, sometimes now I kid around with my lenders. I have 6 or 7 lenders and, and they'll ask for something. Sometimes I have to do annual statements and things like that. I'm like, where's it go? What do you do with it?
Well, that leads.
They have no idea.
No, I'm not
Yeah.
surprised. So, which leads to this other issue that, and what I see is that, especially in the banking world, financial service world, that there's legacy systems that instead of scrapping them, they always want to fix them. And so, by definition, they're always 20 years behind. And is that the same way with the customer's data that it's legacy systems not wanting to address them and then basically waiting for somebody else who would be coming up the pike to be the executive?
If you have a database
Hmm.
with 1 million customer records in it in a legacy system, that is where the hackers are going to go. It's like the old saying they
Yeah,
interviewed some bank robber. Why do you rob banks? He's like, that's where the money is.
yeah.
If you're trying to put together a profile of a person and you can kind of either trick your way in or hack your way in and get into a big database with 100,000 or millions of records, and all you got to do is get in and you have all of it, that's where you're going. And there are foreign actors that they want a profile of Americans or people in the military. And
Mhm.
it's a bigger problem than people, talk about.
So, how do you solve this issue? Because that's really what executives are stumbling around is that the issue is complex from their standpoint. It's highly expensive from their viewpoint. And at the same token, at the point that you made in your LinkedIn blog is that the consumer doesn't know who to believe, which I agree 100%. So, how do you solve this for an institution that's been around fairly a long time and has all these records that you're talking about?
So as a startup, which we are, we're looking for, an uncommon solution because
Hmm.
there's nothing, even if you have a great CIO, there's not a lot. They can't keep everyone out of their existing systems. It's just, you can't do it the way everything's, as you said, is
Sure.
built and there's legacy parts to that. So the way when we started from scratch, I have no database of 100,000 customers, so I can kind of have that luxury of starting from
Sure.
scratch. We put the consumer in control. So we want the consumer to be in control of their own data. And we know from other startups that are very big, putting consumers in control of something is a winning formula. Think of Zillow. They took the MLS
Hmm.
data, they came up with a marketing thing called the Zestimate, and they
Yep.
and they just made it consumer facing. It was once behind closed walls, only a realtor could
Hmm.
get it. And now their market cap's bigger than any, most mortgage companies.
Hmm.
Same thing with
Hmm.
Netflix. Took all that movie data. The existing industry didn't want to deal with it. Thought it was a dumb idea. They
Hmm.
let consumers kind of be empowered. And then you get Netflix and you get Amazon logistics.
Yeah.
So it is hard for incumbents to, as you said, to kind of change their
Yeah.
systems. So we were really looking for a way to do this to kind of, how can we do it and then didn't want to change anybody's process on the back end because we knew that wasn't a great way to start.
Right.
So we're looking for a baby step to kind of get in. And the baby step is to let the consumer control their data, get 100% lender ready on their safest device they own, which is their phone.
Hmm.
And that was my last business was mobile and data. We
Hmm.
powered all the mobile and data for all 350,000 real estate agents at all the big franchisers. So when you download Aster Key, that's actually an app that lets you get lender ready. And
Hmm.
we do everything that we don't like that's happening in mortgage, we don't do it in our app. So when we take your data or you get an income or asset verification, when we pull that data, we strip out your personal information your name, your social, your email, from your financial information. We encrypt it separately and we
Mm-hmm.
send it to your phone and we store it separately. And we keep changing the keys to get in, which is why we called it Aster Key. And we don't store anything on a server. We're literally getting your data to you on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing really to hack on your phone. It's all gibberish. And we put it back together for the lender when the consumer says, okay, I like you. You can talk to the lenders anonymously, incognito if you want in the beginning. And we just give the lender a way to let the consumer get started and have a way to look at all their accounts and do things outside the existing system because you can't secure the existing system. And over time, we'll take some of those processes and put it into the lender systems. Like the first
Mm-hmm.
partnership we did, we went through the ICE and Compass um,
Mm-hmm.
process because we thought, oh, if we can drop this data in with a ID
Mm-hmm.
instead of a name, it's in someone's instance there, and then the lender can go from there. But we wanted it to be always on the consumer's terms. So that's kind of the baby steps that we're taking.
Well, when I was reading in the blog, when why I was interested to talk to you, is that it did seem that it looked to me like it's a marketing and selling opportunity. I'm putting on my
Right.
selling hat.
That's the way I
And
do it too. Yep.
so I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, how many consumers do lenders not obviously, they miss them because they are not comfortable filling out forms when lenders really are experts in asking you to fill out a form even before you had a conversation. I know I had a lender experience not that long ago, and they literally would not talk to you unless you fill out their form. And
Yeah.
so it just seemed to me that there's an incredible amount of business that's missing for them because that process is not very consumer friendly. And in essence, what is your kind of estimate of how much more business a lender could do if they just had a different mechanism of how the customer comes in from the entry level?
20%.
Oh yeah, I knew it was sizable. That's why I asked you. So I knew it had to be sizable because how many people, and I know myself, I mean, I exit those forms quickly. I might put my name, but then I decide I'm not doing that.
It's not a fair trade.
Yeah, it's not a fair
So
trade.
it just really, I've come, and especially if you've already gone through the process. So if you've already bought a home and it's not your first rodeo,
Right,
pretty
right.
much coming back to me after the initial whatever in
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks, 4 weeks, ask me for something else. At this point, you're just annoying me. Time has gone by.
Mm-hmm.
We're in an instant world. I'd much rather look, 100 million people in the US have a Schwab account, a Vanguard, a Fidelity account.
Right.
People understand how to self-direct things.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really hard to show them these are the 30 things you're going to need and take them through that process and get them lender ready in a more secure environment. And I think also what lenders miss is that's great. You use this, as you said, the application. They flip you a little link, say, hey, go use this, upload all
Right.
your stuff.
Correct.
Guess what? We're no dummies. I bet you it takes an hour to figure it out.
Correct.
It's not, we don't use it all the time. It's your link. I probably, whether it's a car loan or a home equity
Mm-hmm.
loan, I'm really not into like learning three different systems and
Yeah.
uploading. I'd rather have it to me. I connect where I want to go because they're Aster Key customers and use the same stuff over and over again in an instant way. So what I learned in my other businesses is once you take care of the data and streamline it, innovation just happens. I learned from the biggest lenders, like what's the bottleneck? What's the problem? How many people drop? Where are they
Right.
dropping? Like, why don't you create another channel? It just says, oh, you dropped. You didn't fill it out. They should have said, hey, do it in this ultra private app. Here you go. I won't even see it. Just fill, get your stuff
Mm-hmm.
ready and ask me questions. I still won't know who you are. And you just, when you want to tell me who you are, you can. And I think that as you said, it's all marketing. And I've seen the numbers and people come
Yeah.
out of incognito mode like on the first or second time. They just want to
I,
get comfortable.
yes, yes, yes. So It leads to the issue at some point, and I even know myself, I don't like filling out forms. And so at some point, isn't it just going to be kind of voice? In other words, voice generated, fill out the data and then let that data flow in that way versus spending that two or three times before I get comfortable, but I still got to fill out, basically some type of form. What's your thoughts on that? Is that where this is all kind of going, and is that where AI is coming into it?
Yeah, I think it'll work. Everyone is different. I
Sure.
mean, some people may like to do the upload. You're still going to have to, unless that AI knows your logins, which is another
Yeah.
scary thought, because
Hmm.
that's how you're getting the data. You're logging into the IRS to get your tax returns, you're logging into
Sure.
Plaid to get
Hmm.
assets or debts. So whether you're talking or doing it, it depends how much and at what point in time you trust that AI agent to know all your logins. I don't
Sure.
know that I'm ready for that yet.
No.
I'm sure we will, and in 10 years or so it'll be better, but I think it's probably steps to get there. And then any interface will work. Voice,
So
typing.
it leads to the question, and I deal with a lot of banks also, and more so than I see with maybe the independent mortgage bankers. But banks are very much stuck on that if you make it too easy for the customer, it'll be worse. In other words, fraud will occur versus that argument and then the compliance once the compliance people step in, it kind of loses the pushback can be pretty tremendous as some of these, certainly the large depositories. And so it's interesting to me, and I'm interested in your thoughts. Why wouldn't this be perceived as a really more compliant friendly effort versus looking at it like, well, this is really some risky method where in the old days we've always done it this way and let's fill out forms and then it's their responsibility and all of that. Talk to me about that.
So it is safer. So when you go to Aster Key and you want to communicate or
Hmm.
send something to a lender, we've already ID'd you. We've already
Hmm.
done, the identity check, ID, the face scan, check your phone.
Hmm.
So we're hitting all the points already. And just because you have your data in an anonymized form, or even if you're first, we're kind of getting off the first communication is anonymous. I don't think that really matters as much as the safety, but
Hmm.
it is more compliant.
Right.
And you're far exceeding all the privacy rights.
Hmm.
So I actually think this is a safer way. It's safer
Hmm.
for the banks. It's safer to have it decentralized on everybody's phone
Correct.
because even if there was a hack, it's one. It's not
Hmm.
100,000 people the way you store data at a bank.
Hmm.
So the other thing, which I'm learning, I have a 90-year-old dad who still checks his accounts. My brother put him into Aster Key because although he's pretty savvy, there are assets in those accounts.
Yeah.
And he has clicked on things, Microsoft pop up that someone takes over his
Hmm.
computer. So we were getting a little nervous there. And we put him in an Aster Key app where he can see everything. His face
Hmm.
IDs him to open it. He just can't transact.
Hmm.
And we put together a whole playbook, which we're now showing to banks on how you can protect your customers and get multi-generation. I mean, if someone would have done that for my dad, I'd be pretty loyal to that bank.
Yeah.
And I think there's opportunities for banks to stand out and protect their customers. And that's the whole you mentioned with the trust. Like, I think trust is a something that is a marketing opportunity and you should
Yes.
really get behind it. So,
Hmm.
and there's lots of things you can do to protect, retirees. They check their accounts a lot.
Yes.
So, and we've done things like with my dad in our playbook where my brother's is two-factor. So there's no scammers going to get my dad's accounts because my brother's going to get the thing. The two-factor authorization. He's going to call my dad and say, what do you do? What's up? What do you want to do? And
Hmm.
half the time when he does that, my dad says, I don't remember. He's just checking.
Just checking. Okay. So, well, it leads to another question that in your selling this approach, which is really based off of what you talked about with Amazon and all the other people that have moved that way. The financial industry as a whole, when you talk about the world of Amazon and Apple and all that stuff, they just feel because of the compliance side, we're in some other world. And I think the argument you were making in your blog is that no, we're in the same world. You need to step to the plate or you won't be around because consumers don't know what to believe anymore, which is obviously true because you're in the same boat and I am when you read stuff. Is this true? I don't even know anymore, to tell you the
Yeah.
truth. So, what, in other words, maybe this isn't a marketing or a selling a strategy, but you have to get over the compliance people who perceive it as like, well, Apple and those guys don't have the same requirements that we have.
Yeah, that's true, but I think you're meeting and exceeding it. So if you can
Hmm. I agree.
it's just kind of the same old way versus this is the way our
Sure.
system lets us do it versus
Hmm.
now. So I don't, our tech, I mean, even in the background of our tech, we're making blockchain proofs of things. We're checking tamper proof. So I know
Hmm.
the way we build our system. We had the luxury. I'm not saying, a
Hmm.
bank, they're in business, they deal with billions of dollars and they have lots of
Hmm.
customers and their systems are slower. I had the benefit of using, modern technology, modern
Sure.
architecture, modern
Hmm.
processes. And
Hmm.
so, but I think, and they are some of the bigger banks. I mean, Chase is no slacker, but
Sure.
that just makes it harder for folks that don't do that because there will be leaders and
Right.
you will trust them and you will trust them more and they will continue to be bigger. And,
Yes.
I do
Hmm.
see that in lending a lot and especially in mortgage where it's a little short-sighted. It's kind of like get me to retirement. I don't see like a lot of building the same way you see these young tech guys talking about the
Sure.
future for generations, you don't hear a lot of that in finance. It's kind of like get me to
No.
my bonus, get me to here. Maybe if they have a son or a daughter in the business, it's a little different. But
Sure.
I just don't hear it enough where I am not building, for now or 5 years. I am building for 20 years and 30 years. And I think
Very true.
those are the companies I want to work with. Like I see online like you did. People are like, "Oh, did Rocket just buy Redfin and Mr. Cooper?" Like, you
Right.
should not be spinning your head around. That should have
Yeah.
been obvious that things were going to consolidate. And, what are you doing to like jump that? That's the way
Hmm.
tech guys think. We're thinking, here's what the leaders are doing. What can I do and build that I'm going to
Hmm.
be doing this for 10 years? Like, how do I get ahead? Like, what's
Right.
my advantage? What's my competitive advantage? And
Hmm.
there are people like that. And
Sure.
you said you
I,
introduced me to some, so
yeah, I know.
yeah,
I'm always looking
I
for
want to like
the,
those people.
yeah, I do too. I mean, I call them the enlightened souls, as people hear me talk all the time. And so, one last question before I ask you about the takeaways is the regulators, because that's always what you run across in our world of whether it's banks, credit unions, or independent mortgage bankers. What's their view towards this type of approach versus, what they've seen obviously in the past?
I actually think the last couple of years have seen the most change. And maybe, it's the economy and it's a bunch of things
Hmm.
but I've seen a little more openness. Even the past, nobody's there anymore, but I'm not a fan of the, Consumer Financial
Sure.
Protection Bureau, and not, but they were going down a road with more open banking, with more tech, with protecting the consumer. And so I think there's threads of those things that are moving. And I think you just need to bring the regulators along. I mean, they're doing a yeoman's task and they're
Yeah.
overwhelmed with fraud and all sorts of things that they're
Hmm.
trying to look at. But I think when things are bad, people start sharpening pencils and thinking, what's the best way for me to achieve these
Right.
goals? And I think you bring the regulatory along. Like we always said, you can approve somebody, you can approve them off a blockchain proof. You'll just have to bring the paperwork alongside of it until that's not a requirement anymore.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
you can't just, break off and do something totally different. I think you got to be a realist about it.
Right. Well, they're all great points, and I agree with you 100%. I do think the trust level in so many arenas, not just the financial sector, it's been weakened, and the credibility as a result has been weakened. So you're really hitting upon things that I think are really important. So, what couple takeaways would you have our listeners today?
Yeah, I just think if you're a leader, you have to move a little past, I'm there to get someone in their home.
Hmm.
Whether you're a realtor or a lender, like, and not look at all the things that happen along the way.
Hmm.
That's the worthy goal. Let's get them in a house, but I think you have to start thinking about how do I leave that consumer better off? How do I stay in touch with them for life that makes it very relevant? And how can I use, tech that protects their privacy and their data where I want to stay in touch with them for life, but I'm just going to market to them and email them and till they call me when they need something. I think there's better ways to do that. And I think trust and privacy is a leg that it's
Yeah.
uncommon. I don't think people lead with that. I'm not saying you have to lead with that, but I think it should be something when you're thinking about your processes. You
Hmm.
shouldn't be like, hey, I can build this cheaper in, offshore in India, and then ship my data there. I think you have to think about like, how am I really
Yeah.
360 helping these consumers? I think that's the key
No, I agree
takeaway.
with you 100%. You're
Yeah.
so right on all of that. So how can our listeners get a hold of you and contact you?
Yeah, online, asterkey.com, Brad at asterkey.com. All roads lead back to me. Yeah.
That's that's great. Well, thanks, Brad, for sharing all your thoughts, and certainly for our listeners to check out more of our podcasts, go to patsherlock.com. Thanks again, Brad.
Thank you. Bye bye.